You know, if I'm being for real, this is not actually something I ever planned on talking about on this very bad channel, but this series has a very special place in my life. Super Metroid is one of the first, if not the first, game that I ever actually remember legitimately finishing on my own. Metroid Prime was the first game that my dad bought me for my GameCube back in 2002. I smashed Metroid Fusion, I beat Zero Mission. I played Metroid Prime 2 and Prime 3, and Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS back in 2005. I literally have a display hanging on my office wall of Zero Suit Samus. I love Metroid. Of course, there's a lot of imagination that went into this because I was just a boy when I was playing these games, but just think about it for a second. To be a bounty hunter, a galactic superpower in a nutshell. Samus has a higher body count than any character I've ever heard of, both literally and metaphorically. That puts her right up top with the likes of the Doomslayer. Of course, that's just boots on the ground combat. We're not factoring the amount of self-destruct sequences that she's initiated, or the planets that she's destroyed, or, races she's exterminated. Just straight up genocide. She's a classy lady. The kind that you take out to dinner at 6 so you can have her home by 8 because she's got to blow up a moon by 10. And that's basically what this entire episode is about. If you can't handle her at her worst, which for the record is still arguably fantastic, you don't deserve her at her best. And by best, I mean Super Metroid. That's another can of worms I plan to crack open eventually, but not today. Today, I want to talk about the beginning of Metroid. This is one of my favorite games of all time, right up there with Castlevania, hence where the term Metroidvania came from. It used to give me a lot of trouble as a little boy, but that never stopped me from banging my head against the brick wall that was Zebus. Or Zebeth, I think. Who in the fuck translated this? There is something so beautifully simplistic about it, and while I wasn't really able to give face to it as a child, I was still capable of recognizing this for the gem that it was. Looking back on it as an adult, I can successfully put into words the feelings that this game still gives me to this day. Things like genuinely unbridled joy, that sense of wonder and exploration. Where am I going? What am I doing? All coupled by the fact that for the next 4 hours of my life, or however long it takes for me to marathon the fuck out of this, I get to play something that legitimately puts a smile on my face instead of something so vehemently bad that it makes me want to staple my dick to my stomach. The presentation of this game and the way that it paved new roads 30 years ago proves that Nintendo cared about this project. Mostly. Don't you worry, I'm gonna get to you. It is the side-scroller, shaved down to its most basic of elements, and then spiced up with a tremendous amount of creative color and exploratory flair. And even with the primitive and dated hardware that the NES came with, all these ideas just came together naturally, and they all worked. If you crowned Super Mario Bros. As the king of platforming, then Metroid was the queen. This is the kind of shit that put hair on your chest, turned you into a man. Gone were the days of the screen only being able to scroll to the right, cause Samus doesn't give a fuck about rules. You can go anywhere. Up, down, left, right. You can get all the way to the end of the game in just under 5 minutes, or you can spend 10 to 15 hours exploring and just having a good old-fashioned retro blast. One of the things you gotta understand going into a game like Metroid is that this was released back in 1988. Post-production Jay here, my brain is actually smooth. Metroid came out in 1986. And as a result, there's a lot of things that it lacks in terms of qualities that future installments of the series would have. We didn't have power bombs. We didn't have stacking beam effects. We didn't have the boost ball or the shine spark. And we didn't have a map in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, so we didn't feel like a fucking rat in a goddamn maze. A note that didn't cause any problems for me. Not one fucking bit! The ominous and foreboding atmosphere of Super Metroid, that is the first thing that comes to my mind. Most of that is due to the limited level of detail that the NES was capable of, ultimately paling in comparison to the Super NES. Or the handling and just general control of Samus all around. She's arguably slower than she would be in future games. But when this came out, this was all there was. And when I finally played it for the first time in 1995, a year after Super Metroid came out, I, and the rest of those who would later become the majority of the Metroid fanbase, did not give even a fourth of a fuck. Maybe it was because of the title screen. That dark and foreboding bit-crushed music still giving me that same Space Marine hard-on I had when I was just a little boy, only for it to turn into something more stoic and hopeful. was an artistic touch, and a strong one at that. One that stands parallel to the overall theme of the game. You're an explorer. With a fucking arm cannon. I am still perplexed by this relic of generations past. Never once have I actually finished it, not until I started working on this video at least. And it's not because I got bored or I just didn't want to finish it, but at the ripe age of 6, my brain was still a bit too smooth to wrap itself around the concept of a linear sandbox, where you, the player, are placed inside of a world and are allowed to move freely within that world, provided you have the equipment necessary to progress. The equipment was always a problem for me, and by that I mean finding it, because I just wanted to wear a cool spacesuit and shoot things.
Anyway, I started blasting.
People, especially kids with shorter attention spans, were not quite necessarily accustomed to this kind of a semi-linear experience yet, so much so that the opening stage of Brinstar was designed to act as a basic tutorial. Players would spawn in and naturally would be drawn to the right-hand side of the screen because progression. This was the era of side-scrollers, and Super Mario Bros. Was still in its prime. And at that time, right was typically the only direction you could go. They'd pass through a door with these strange-looking blocks and monsters underneath them, implying that they could explore that later, and that forward is not necessarily the only available direction. You head through this door and into your first big room with a couple monsters, and then bam, you're immediately hit with an impassable roadblock. There's a hole that you can't crawl through. So what do? Naturally, with no other direction to go, the player will go backwards, all the way back to where they started only a few minutes before, and it's there, right next to where the game begins, that you find your first key mechanical item, the Marumari, or for anybody who doesn't speak weeb, the round ball, because balls are round. You are completely defenseless with the exception of a single power beam that dissipates about 1.5 feet in front of you, and that's not gonna work for me, so I grab the Morph Ball and I move on, because there's a solution for that problem here in Brinstar. The thing about Metroid is that you are effectively placed in a maze, and the object is to find the various items that you need to progress further into that maze. You'll find yourself backtracking a lot, so you may as well just get accustomed to it now. It's all about the upgrades, gotta get those power-ups. Starting with the first one that I deem absolutely goddamn must-have mandatory, the long beam. Remember how I said this game used to give me trouble as a little boy? Well, this is why. So to get the long beam, you start in Brinstar and immediately head to the left to go get the Morph Ball. Then you head all the way to the right until you hit the roadblock, to which you roll under and enter the blue shaft. Now you're gonna climb halfway up and then go through the first door on your right, and then you're gonna drop all the way down and head through the door at the bottom and then kill these fuckheads until they're dead, grab the missile, do a little celebratory dance, turn around, climb halfway up the yellow shaft, go through the door you came through and climb back up the blue shaft, and then head through the first door on your left. Do not forget to pass go. Do not forget to collect $200 and obtain both Boardwalk and Park Place, and then blast this door with the missile. What the fuck? Oh yeah, I forgot. You actually need 5 missiles because fuck you. But there, that's it. There's the long beam. It's in there. You can probably understand why a 6-year-old boy with severe ADHD who's never played a game like this might have had some trouble with that. That item jingle though? Mwah! This one sound single-handedly fired off every available neuron in my fucking brain that hadn't already been allocated to pixelated ass on screen. Yes, I already knew that Samus was a lady. There's something so vivid and sentimental about it to me. So much so that it just kind of stands out in my head. The item jingle, not the pixel ass, though Nintendo made sure to improve on that with future installments. Somewhere, someone with a giantism fetish is jacking off to this. I just know it. Now, the Morph Ball bombs are literally a straight shot to the right from the long beam. You leave the door you came through and you just go right until you literally can't anymore, and then climb up the first door you see on your left. Also, definitely want to pick up the E-tank in the middle of the fucking room along the way. Bam! Now you can bomb jump. Bomb jumping is an extremely useful trick that requires an extraordinarily large amount of precision in this game for some reason that I just haven't quite been able to work out. Now, I've never been able to master the triple bomb jump, but I can nail the fuck out of a double, and I'm gonna need that trick here in just a second too, because there's an E-tank that's directly above me, along with another key item that I don't want to have to come back for later. The Various Suit. Unless, of course, I break the game now, and I sure do enjoy unbridled amounts of destruction, so let me just knock these blocks out, and then lay these bombs, and just completely and totally break the progression of the game. Cool, time to head to Norfair. Jesus, this place is ugly. But ugly with a certain charm to it, if I'm being honest. I actually kinda like it. There's only so much they could do with the NES hardware and its revolutionary 2 kilobytes of onboard RAM. That's not a joke. And to the left of the elevator is the easiest missile tank you're ever gonna get, so let me just take that. The color palettes go from blues and yellows to dark purples and bright whites that create a distinct difference in the overall mood, especially when the music kicks in. There's something about the atmosphere here, something kind of foreboding and frightening, almost as if the player isn't supposed to be here, which is something I really like and something I appreciated both as a child and even now as an adult. It's kind of like you're breaking into enemy territory. It takes a lot to establish atmosphere with 8-bit sprites and chunky pixels, especially back in 1986. Unfortunately, this is the part where the nostalgia kind of starts to die for me a little bit because I don't really think I ever got any further than Norfair as a kid. I think I killed Kraid, or at the very least, a Kraid, because there's two of them for some fucking reason that I haven't quite worked out yet. Honestly, I don't remember. It's been like 25 years, but despite how fucking ugly Norfair is with all the purple and orangish vomit sprites that just don't mesh well together, this is one of the most intricately designed zones in the game. There are so many secret paths to take to get some of these hidden power-ups. This is the entire map of Norfair. Level designers went to great lengths to make this zone significantly more horizontal as opposed to just empty halls and vertical shafts. It's real easy to get lost here because there aren't as many key locations you can identify easily, so if this is your first time playing and you don't have a map, then you just kind of fumble around a bit like, this is that large interconnecting shaft. Yeah, there's the platforms, and there are the doors, and there's some bricks. Where the fuck am I? It happens a lot, and again, that's not a knock on NRD1 either. As previously discussed, they delivered the best product they were capable of in an extremely short amount of time with the hardware and the software that was available to them almost 30 years ago, so I'm not gonna bitch about that. So yeah, this place doesn't got much in terms of looks, but you know what it does have? The wave beam. However, good luck finding it without a map. Now, on the topic of that map, which you can find in the description if you want to play this game, it still took about 99% of my fucking brain power just to figure out where in the hell I was going half the time. And again, that all comes back to, yeah, I know where I'm at. This is the place with the black backdrop and the purple bricks, but wait, there's the platforms again. So where the fuck am I? I played through this a dozen different times because it's actually really short, and I can say with complete confidence that getting the space jump boots is the first thing that you want to do. I'm sorry, I mean the high jump boots. Just gonna take that real quick. Normally, this is where I'd take my happy ass back to Brinstar and get the Various suit, but I don't have to do that because yee-haw, fuck the law. So I'm gonna go straight to Kraid after the screw attack and the wave beam. I'm sorry, did I say Kraid? I meant Ridley, because I don't know where the fuck I'm at. Now, the screw attack and the wave beam. These are two of the most effective weapons in the game. The wave beam especially, but it is virtually useless against Metroids. You'll end up having to swap it out later for the ice beam because the only way to kill those motherfuckers is to freeze them and then...
Anyway, I started blasting.
The screw attack, on the other hand, is priceless. These were also some of the most grueling items to find because there's about 7,491 secret destructible blocks between you and them, coupled with these horrible dragons that are spitting fireballs at you to make sure you fuck up your platforming as much as possible, except that these guys just kinda don't fucking work right. And I see that animation, that little thoo, and I know you guys can't see my face, but you know exactly what my fucking mouth looks like when I do that. So I jump and I try to avoid it, and of course the attack never actually happens, so when I fall into this lava here, it's my own fucking fault because my brain's as smooth as a bowling ball. I am so very fucking done with Norfair. Going back through it for extra footage and to fix some of my inevitable fuck-ups was twice as easy, likely because I'd already memorized all the right paths to take. But it brought a tear to my eye when I finally managed to get both the screw attack and the wave beam because I knew I'd never have to fucking do it again. But I got other things to worry about before I can leave this purple hellscape that I am still so fond of for reasons that I can't quite explain. I got a date with a giant space dragon. I already hate this place. Bad sounds, bad music, bad vibes, man. Bad vibes. I'm only here for bosses and E-tanks, so I'm gonna make this one quick. Hey, Ridley. Are you ready to die? Just so we're clear, this is how you abuse Ridley. I told you the screw attack would come in handy. So once he's fucking dead, he drops a pickup that gives you 75 more missiles. And there's an E-tank behind him. Let's just hope that Crades, rather, because there's two of them and I don't know why, drop the same amount of missiles. Crade is arguably a bit more of an asshole, and he doesn't respond well to my standard methods of boss abuse, so I gotta improvise a little bit. No screw attack on this one. Gonna have to abuse the missiles. Fuck this boss. Time to go step on Mother Brain. Now that Kraid and Ridley are 6 feet in the dirt, it's time to start planning for the last zone of the game, which just so happens to be infested with Metroids. Yeah, I know, like I mentioned earlier, this game is pretty short. I wasn't joking when I said I played through it a handful of times to get the footage for this video. Now, back on track. If you don't know what a Metroid is, they're basically blood-sucking bastards. They latch onto you and suck you dry like that dead guy from Life Force back in 1985. You guys all know about that movie with the shape-shifting alien vampires, right? Who the fuck am I kidding? No, you don't. God, I'm getting old. There are 2 goals in Torian. 1, don't get eaten by the Metroids. 2, don't get eaten by the red Metroids. And as an added bonus, 3, annihilate the Mother Brain, which, in my age, I've realized looks an awful lot like the tip of a dick in a jar. If I have to suffer with that visual, so do you. Honestly, though, it's the Metroids I'm concerned about more than anything else because they are fucking everywhere. And there's only one way to permanently destroy a Metroid. Freeze them and blast them.
Anyway, I started blasting.
Now, there's 2 different places to pick up the ice beam, but I'm already here in the starting zone, and I'd much rather set myself on fire than set foot in Norfair for a second time for the sake of a beam weapon, so topside it is. And this is it. The final stretch. And the elevator to the worst part of this game. No looking back now. Fuck it. As soon as you set foot in Torian, you will immediately be ambushed by Metroids, an enemy you've never seen, know nothing about, and have no idea how to handle. I mean, I know how to handle them because the rules are the same in every game, but in 1986, nobody knew what the fuck to do when these prick fucks would latch onto you. And what's worse is that in this game specifically, more than one of these motherfuckers can suck you dead at the same time. You want to see my first death of the game? This is it. I was pissed. I am still not quite over that. I'm used to handling multiple Metroids at once. That comes from playing Metroid Prime, but you can't handle them like that in this game. I ended up having to pick them off one by one and play the platform game because I was fucking paranoid. Oh shit! There's no exploring in Torian. There's no extra items to get, no missile expansions or E-tanks. By the time I got here, I was already stocked. 240 missiles and 6 E-tanks. I thought I was ready. I was wrong. Now, like a good critic that wants to give a game an honest shot before shitting on it, I have refrained from bitching through this entire video. Any and all complaints have been endearing, if I'm being honest. I love this game, and I maintain that it is great. And Torian itself isn't actually the problem, but the last boss is just a jumbled mess of dysfunction. And no, that's not me whining because it's too hard. My problem is with Mother Brain because she fucking sucks. Let's discuss. First, you gotta destroy the Zebatites with missiles before you can even get to Mother Brain. If you don't damage them fast enough, they regenerate and you've wasted precious missiles that you cannot get back. So if you're playing this game and you're not maxed on missiles yet,
stop it.
Go max out your missiles. Trust me. Second, the room is filled with Rinkas, little ringworm-like monsters that float around, constantly respawn, and don't drop any resources. Again, max out your missiles. Number 3. There are mounted wall guns on the ceiling, firing at every angle, able to hit you from almost every conceivable direction. And just so we're clear, this will set your NES on fire if all of it happens at the same time. Which it does. It doesn't matter whether or not you're playing with an emulator or an actual NES. This will kill your performance. Frames and game speed start to drastically drop because the NES could only handle so much sprite work on screen at a time. Around 8 was the limit, to be specific, but here we've got 1 Zebbatite, 3 Rinkas, 3 energy blasts, plus the player sprite and all the projectiles that you're firing. It's a lot, and the game's performance takes a nosedive, which makes this exponentially more complicated than it needs to be because the game's input response time is affected by that too. The game can only render so many inputs from the player across X amount of frames, and that includes projectiles and weapons fire. So when the performance starts to drop, so does your control of Samus, and it is infuriating. As a result, you're gonna get your shit pushed in that first go through. There's no getting around it, just accept it. There is, however, a light at the end of this tunnel. The Rinkas can be frozen. It doesn't help your performance at all, but it does stop them from moving, which means they can't fuck you off every platform you're standing on when you're trying to take out the Zebetites. It's a pain in the ass, but if you can freeze even just one of them and not destroy it, it takes that much frustration out of the battle. And you might be thinking, Rinkas don't bother me, I'll just sidestep them. Yeah, that's what I thought too, but if they push you into the lava, you're basically stuck down there until you die, and no, that didn't cause any problems for me, not one fucking bit! Remember, the game is lagging. Your inputs are fucking up. The controls are not responding as they should, so things become exponentially more complicated than they need be. But if you just stick with it, the mother brain explodes. And so does the rest of Zebus. Or Zebeth. Who the fuck translated this? Time to go! And so begins one of the single most entertaining escape sequences that I have ever played. Short, but sweet. Just enough to rinse out all that fucking sour from Mother Brain. It is oddly satisfying for reasons that I don't quite understand. It's hard to describe because unfortunately I didn't experience this as a kid, but I'm willing to bet I would have shit my pants. Great! You fulfilled your mission. It will revive peace in space. But it may be invaded by the other Metroid. Well, if that's not an ominous foreshadowing, oh god.
Why am I still alive? The baby.
Okay, that's enough of that. Pray for a true peace in space. You know, I gotta admit, I'm not much of a prayer kind of guy, but I am pretty good at shooting things. Will it work if I shoot until it dies?